Hey everybody, Jay Schlansky here from the Fifth Trooper Network. I just want to take a moment to thank you for checking out this show. Did you know that over at thefifthtrooper.com we have tons of other content, including blogs, other podcasts, all kinds of stuff. In addition, if you want access to exclusive content, you can join us on patreon.com/thefifthtrooper and join at any level and you'll get access to exclusive blog articles, access to our private Discord, and much more. So please check us out, and thank you so much for all your support.
Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Mike and Evan. What's up, gentlemen?
Aloha.
Much, how you doing?
Not bad. My voice is obviously going a little bit, so I apologize. If I break into some random coughing fit on this episode, I will try to mute myself when that happens. But I'm going to let you guys do most of the talking today because we're going to talk about the holiday buyer's guide, which you recently updated, Evan.
That's right.
And we're also going to talk briefly about PAX Unplugged, which is happening this weekend. But first, I would like to just tell you about our friends at Tabletop Terrain, which offers miniature terrain for tabletop games. They have 3D printed scenery for war games, tabletop, and role-playing games. It's handcrafted and available to ship to your door. They also offer board game organizers for quick setup and organization of your games. If you use promo code TheFifthTrooper, you can get 10% off. And that is tabletopterrain.com.
All caps.
Sorry, the Fifth Trooper is all caps, the promo code. Tabletopterrain.com is not all caps. But yes, thank you, Mike.
Yep.
That's correct. Yep. All right. So PAX Unplugged is this weekend. None of us are going, unfortunately, but there are other people going. Right now it's 34 people signed up. So should be, it's usually one of the larger US, certainly the larger East Coast tournaments. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out.
Yeah, it'll be good to talk about that next week for sure.
Yep.
And it'll be the first GT in the United States since the points change happened.
Since the we nerfed clones, but not really update.
we nerfed some clones update. Yeah.
An attempt was made. Yeah.
We definitely got Yoda though, even though he was the shortest. They really nailed him.
Yep. They got him. Mission accomplished. Okay. Yeah, we'll have the results obviously after the weekend. I'm sure we'll put an article up about that, and we'll probably talk about it next week on the cast as well. But this week we're going to talk about basically if you're getting into Legion or if you just need stuff for Legion, what you should be buying, because it is December officially. We just had Black Friday. The start of this week, it was Cyber Monday, so this won't help you on Cyber Monday deals. But it will help you on post Cyber Monday deals. So yeah. Evan, tell us about your holiday buyer's guide, and basically like if folks are looking to get started in Legion and then building out from there, what should they do? Obviously this is different from one faction to the next, so we can get into a lot of detail here potentially, but
yeah, so we have a buyer's guide that now we have a permanent link on the site. If you hover over Star Wars Legion, is that the third thing down that you'll see right there will be a link to the buyer's guide. We also have a link from the subreddit, the Star Wars Legion subreddit, and it's the idea of this is like I did just update it, so it as of now is sort of a holiday buyer's guide, but this is actually the third time we've updated it since we went live with it in early June, I believe. And the idea is to have a living buyer's guide. Is we've done this in the past, but looking at a buyer's guide from 2021 would probably be raving about how rad Padme is, and nowadays the opinions of that may be slightly different, and so If you don't keep these things updated, then they end up losing all of their value over time. Because if you accidentally recommend getting something that maybe doesn't feel so great, then it isn't doing a lot of people a lot of good. And so when I went through this buyer's guide, is that we we did sort of take it in a order which we'll mostly follow here. But when I when you get farther down and I get to the point where I rate things, which was a lot of fun to sort of think about how valuable is one particular expansion versus another, is that I did try to account for three different things, which is one, the quality of the models. So that's where, for instance, the riot control would get some points that maybe the Imperial Guards, this now being like the third week in a row that we've trashed an Imperial Guards, is that those models are not going to be nearly as good as the riot control guys, even if they're both charging Empire units that aren't really in favor right now. So that's one thing that matters. And then the second thing that matters is sort of how competitive it is. That's not going to matter to everybody, but it is an aspect to some people. And then the third is how fun it is, because as you both know, is that sometimes the things that are competitive are also boring, and sometimes the things that are very fun are not necessarily super competitive. And so I tried to sort of roll all those things in when we talk about sort of the quote unquote value of all of these pieces. And so, yeah, the first thing I'll say quickly, just to sort of get an elephant out of the room, so to speak, is that right now, if you follow the links that we have on the site, is that they all, or most of them, go to the Asmodee website. You will see that many of them are sold out on the Asmodee website. That does not necessarily mean that they are impossible to find. Is that it means that the actual like producer of these has sold through, but that in most cases, if you sort of either go to your LGS or if you go to like one of the big stores online, like your Amazons or miniature markets or like Gamers Guild Arizona, is that you'll often be able to find, you can find Rebel Troopers even though they're sold out on Asmodee's site. There are a few that I want to sort of mention off the top, is that you're going to have to look really hard to find them. The biggest culprits for that are two that are not surprising and one that is kind of weird. So the two that are not surprising is B2 Battle Droids and Clone Commandos. Like both of those were already pretty popular before 2.6 hit, and then 2.6 hit and they were both like clearly super good. And so the inventory got cleaned out. So you're going to have to probably get clever to find copies of those, or maybe get some secondhand off of eBay, or find somebody who's getting out of the game to trade with, look around Facebook Marketplace, whatever. The weird one is actually, I have this model right here, is the venerable TX-130 Saber tank.
Yep.
Which has actually been out of production for a long time. And so that's like a little bit of the mystery, but that one, for whatever reason, is also very hard to find. But pretty much everything else is that, even though you may need to get like a little bit more clever in terms of hunting around, is that you can find them. So yeah, any questions or thoughts about that, and before we move on to the starter sets for everybody?
That was very comprehensive, Ed.
All right. Glad to hear.
Do you want to briefly highlight the fact that potentially a lot of this stuff is going to be getting resculpts in the next year or so?
Yeah, that is another good point, is that even as we get into the recommendations for the starter sets for all these factions, is that for everybody except for Shadow Collective and also the 501st box, is that and actually the Separatist Invasion box wouldn't have any soft plastic that I can think of either. Is that certainly for the Blizzard Force and the original core set boxes, both of them, and the Echo-based Defenders, is that all of those are sort of rife with the original soft plastic miniatures, and all of those eventually are going to be replaced by new models. The timing of that is like this has been partially revealed. I think that really the full reveal of that is going to be at Adepticon. And so we don't know exactly when all these things are going to come out per se, but the number of SKUs for like the new version of Legion that starts with SWQ instead of SWL is that they're already in the high double digits. So and that's based on like various sources is that we know that they're already like getting up there. So they are making stuff. They're making lots of products that are going to be meant to replace the old stuff. And so ultimately, when it comes to your buying decisions now, is that something that I would maybe factor in a little bit aside from the starter stuff is whether or not, like, if you really wanted the clone troopers with the funky fins on their heads, which is the phase ones, you may want to wait for like the higher quality version of that to be released. Where versus like if you like the phase twos, then good news that you get a bunch of those in the 501st box, and then you can also buy them separately. And I don't think that the newer sculpts that come out of those phase twos are really going to be all that much better than the older ones were, because the older ones were hard plastic anyway.
Yeah, and they look pretty
yeah.
similar, even just as far as like the posing and stuff
Right.
is concerned. So
yeah, versus like if you wanted to get into Empire, is that the significant majority of the stuff that you're potentially going to put in your army is going to be replaced by like new boxes over the course of the next couple of years. So something to factor in.
yeah, and that goes for a lot of characters and stuff as well. They've previewed numerous, particularly for the Civil War era ones, but
yeah, vast majority of Civil War characters were soft plastic, and even up like Dooku and Rex were actually the last gas of soft plastic in the game.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was.
So they're going to be replaced too.
Yeah, I think the Rebel release is up through what was it? Was it like Lando?
Lando was hard plastic.
Was he hard
Operative
plastic?
Luke may have been the last one for Rebels.
Okay.
Operative Luke was soft plastic. I remember because I had to straighten his lightsaber.
Classic.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think
The
what
old
I
hot water on the lightsaber trick.
I think what I ended up doing, because I got so frustrated, is I took one of Grievous's, because Grievous was hard plastic.
Sure.
Yeah.
I took one of his lightsabers and I clipped it, and I clipped off Luke's lightsaber, and I like super glued one of Grievous's lightsabers to Luke's lightsaber hilt. So
Very good.
yeah. Anyway, I'm sure that's not some kind of blasphemy, but
Well,
yeah.
you had a bunch of extra Grievouses, I'm sure, with all the corsets.
Yeah, and even the original Grievous sprue comes with like extra arms and stuff. And I did the pistol double lightsaber pose. So even if you just take that sprue, I had 2 extra lightsabers in hard plastic. So yeah, and I mean those new sculpts for the characters look amazing.
Yeah,
they do
look really good.
They do.
So yeah. So that's just a, like, if there's something specific that you want that is currently manufactured in soft plastic and you can wait over the course of the next year. I mean, some of this stuff is like not coming out until Q4. So like if you want to if you're getting into the game now, you probably don't want to wait until Q4 to get Krennic or whatever.
Yeah.
Like the Krennic sculpt is fine. You know?
Well, I also think in regards to this, like snowtroopers are soft plastic, but I don't actually think that they've like shown us a new snowtrooper sculpt or anything, right? Like
I don't think so.
And I don't think
we haven't seen it now.
and it's not on a release schedule or anything. So I definitely think it's entirely possible that like some of this stuff, while it is going to be replaced, it might be longer than a year, depending on what it is.
Very possible. We'll have a much better idea once we get the news from Adepticon, and like I will be updating this buyer's guide, and that's basically going to be 4 months from now is when we're going to have that news. And so then we'll have a much better idea of like sort of the decision tree about, do you want to wait for this release? I'll also be, I think, changing the buyer's guide to reflect like better, like what's the hard plastic versus the soft plastic stuff. right now it doesn't really matter too much because nothing's got like a release date. So if you want it, then this is the way that you're going to get it. But we will this buyer's guide was always made to be a living document, and we are going to endeavor to keep it that way.
Yeah, and if you're getting in now and model quality and the type of plastic is important to you, then maybe that's a case for sort of angling towards either Separatists or Republic, both of which have significantly more hard plastic in their ranges, and particularly with their core units. So,
yeah, and on that subject is that I think we can start with the two Clone Wars factions. Is that what we recommend for both of those is to get the Battle Force box and then also the Essentials kit, which will have the range rulers and a few of the dice, and also like the various tokens that everybody needs, like victory tokens and objective tokens and stuff like that. And then but the main point is that those Battle Force boxes give, in both of those boxes, really, really good value in terms of the stuff that you get. Getting it was 4 phase 2 clone troopers, but now you get 4 of the standard clone infantry because all of the clone models are the same unit now. Which is even better value than it was before. It's sort of interesting is that Battle Force box like actually became significantly more valuable because in the past there were certain heavy weapons that were limited to phase 1 clone troopers, including what was at the time a very important one, the rocket launcher. No longer. Ironically, now the rocket launcher is a lot less important, I think. But
yes, for sure.
but now you get 4 of the core that you're able to get, and then also with the Separatist Invasion box, I believe there's 4 units of B1s in there, which is also for the most part the core that you're most likely to use. But you also get a tank, and you get Grievous, which is what you would have gotten in the core set anyway. And so they're both really good deals. Like there's no like chaff in either of those boxes, even if like the droidicas are.
Whoa, I'm sorry. Do not blaspheme my droidicas like that.
No. They've come a long way for sure. Is that like before 2 years ago we would have called droidicas chaff, right? It's that, at least I think so.
Yes, I think droidicas are actually low key like sleeper really good right now. And
I think that maybe we haven't fully unlocked it. But they're cheap as hell, like in terms of the in-game cost. And they can be mobile LOS blockers that now get a free reposition at the beginning of moves. And like I said, there's low chaff. You get a couple like really cool models, like the Droid Box has an AAT, which I also have right here. It's a very
super cool,
very fun model.
Yep.
The AAT is maybe like sort of like it's one of the most sort of eye-grabbing things that you can make in the game from a modeling perspective. The other Separatist heavy, the snail tank, is another one that's really eye-grabbing. And when you put the time into painting it well, is that it looks really sweet on the battlefield, and it's also a very solid unit in the game. So put together, like, for starting off, is that I think that the Battle Force box plus the Essentials kit is a significantly better value than the core set. And the biggest reason is just that, like, for most people, if you get the core set, then half of the contents on it are going to be for a faction that you probably don't immediately want to play. If you can find somebody to split it with, then cool, all the better. And that maybe that's going to be more economical. But for most people, it's just better to get the Battle Force boxes while supplies last. And they are findable now. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case in a couple of months, because I'm sure that they're thinking up whatever the next core sets are going to be.
Yeah, I hope they take these Battle Force box sets and kind of tool new core sets like these box sets, because these are really great introductory spots
Totally agree.
Yeah, like, and the 501st Legion one is actually real good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it really
that
is.
one's great. Definitely the best as far as like competitive value right now. Definitely the best Battle Force box. Probably. I mean, you can. The other ones are good as entry points, but if you're like, I want to go play in tournaments next week and I want to play
Yeah.
with public, I mean, you can't do better than the 501st box.
Yeah.
So, and the only thing it really doesn't have in it is clone commandos.
Yeah, which I don't
Yeah.
think you actually have to even take now.
Yeah.
So
No, but yeah, you get your core and you get a bunch of ARC troopers also, and
Yeah.
that will do you plenty.
That will, yes, that will do you plenty. But yeah, I hope they take the concept of these and just kind of moving forward. If you know they haven't announced new core sets, I have a hard time envisioning them not doing some kind of new core set next year sometime when they release all the new cards and the tools and all that stuff. It seems like it would be super low hanging fruit to do that. But I really
Yeah.
like the concept of being able to just buy a singular faction with a bunch of units in one box. The whole like having to split with somebody is great for, I mean, I get why they do that, right? It's like you kind of recruit a friend to get in the game with you, and but it also like if for people that don't have that luxury, or you know maybe you got 5 guys already that play at a game store and they're getting a 6th guy into it, then it's a little more awkward of an entry point to have like 2 factions in one box.
it's also with like the higher points value of Legion now. The core sets are significantly like a significantly smaller percentage of
Yeah,
the total things you're gonna need to buy now in comparison to these Battle Force boxes. Before they were like kind of like a third to a half of your army, depending on like what core set you got, and now they're like
it's like maybe 20%.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. And you know, for what it's worth, is that we've commented on previous episodes about the fact that it seems like AMG has wanted to sort of take some of the ideas of like the most successful minis game, that being Warhammer 40K, and translate some of the ones that work into Legion. And for what it's worth, is that 40K is like, both for the main game and for Kill Team, as far as I'm aware, is that they have like a faction starter.
Yeah.
And
are they called Battle Force
they do
boxes, or what are
both.
they?
They're called
Right.
combat patrols, I think,
That's
currently
what it
for
is.
40K.
Yep.
But it is literally just a single faction starter. Kill Team has more of the typical like 2 factions in one box thing, but Kill Team
Okay.
is also only like 6 to 10 models on a side.
It's a smaller game for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so moving on to the Galactic Civil War factions, is that with the Rebels, I also think that one to me is an easy recommendation to get the Battle Force box and to get the Essentials kit along with it, because you get, like, in that box, is that you get Luke and Leia, and also R2 and 3PO, and Chewie. I think those are like the heroes that you get in that box, along with, you get 4 veterans and 4 Mark IIs, which before was sort of a joke, because like you weren't allowed to play 4 Mark IIs in any lists. But now that the rules have changed, and that you can take as many Mark IIs as you have of veterans, is that you actually like get the starting point of a lot of Rebel lists these days are sort of doing more of a spamish strategy, and so getting 4 of each of those units in the box is quite valuable. And then you get, like, I think you also get an FD and Tons, if I remember right, which those are like maybe a little bit tougher in terms of its current playability, but also for Tons at least, is that I imagine that they're going to get a card update in April also. And then their points may be their points are going to get adjusted. And so, and putting all that aside, is that it's a very thematic box, is that it's like the people that were there in Empire Strikes Back and the units that were there in Empire Strikes Back. And so it definitely, for people who want to have something that's going to look good on the table, is that it's a really solid one. Then for the Empire, I think that's the one where I think there's the best argument for at least considering a core box instead. So the options are you can either get the core set, which is going to be cheaper than Blizzard Force plus the Essentials kit by like $60-ish, I think, maybe 70. But like you also certainly get much fewer units. You get Vader in both of them, with Commander Vader, which is important. But the difference here is that the Blizzard Force box is that, and also I should say you get speeder bikes in both of them. You get an extra set in the Blizzard Force box. But the difference is that you get snowtroopers in the Blizzard Force box and you get stormtroopers in the core set. You also get an ATST in the Blizzard Force box, but it is the soft plastic version of the ATST. If you care about such things, there's a newer version of that is hard plastic that you can get separately. But even though it's like, it's also very thematic. It's the stuff that you saw in Empire Strikes Back on the Empire side. But even though it's snowtroopers instead of the more traditional stormtroopers, is that it's worth mentioning that snowtroopers are significantly better as a unit in Legion 2.6 anyway. And so the value of that, I think, is also very high. We've talked in previous casts about the fact that speeder bikes value has gone down a little bit, but you get those in both sets anyway, so it doesn't really factor into your decision making all that much. But basically, if you really know that from a theme perspective you want to use like regular stormtroopers, is that it's worth thinking about just doing the core set and then just sort of expanding your collection from there. But I think both are good options.
I'll quibble about the efficacy of snowtroopers, but we could do that on a separate episode.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
What about Shadow Collective?
That one's easy. There's a box called Shadow Collective, and you get everything. You get like, I don't know, technically 75% of the units that you're allowed to use in Shadow Collective all in one box, because you get Maul, you get a unit of Super Commandos, a unit of Pikes, and a unit of Black Sun, and you get all four of those in each box. And these are significantly cheaper than the other Battle Force boxes. So, and also I think that Asmodee made a whole bunch of them because it's actually easy to find them on sale. So right now, it's pretty economical way to get. There's technically 6 units in each box, because from the Black Sun and Pike units is that there's also a generic commander for each one of those. And so like you get 6 units for something like $60 or $70, and it's pretty darn good value. And it's like, when it comes to Shadow Collective, is that if you know you're in for a pound with them, is that I would just start with 3 Shadow Collective boxes and then an Essentials kit, and then you're gonna have enough to be starting out. You're gonna have like a army that's sort of equally divided between those 3 other generic units as a starting point, but it's definitely like a viable army at that point. So yeah, Shadow Collective starting out, that's pretty easy. There's really only one way to do it.
Yeah, I think pound for pound, as far as like your dollars go, that box set is the best by a lot.
Yeah, it's like it's $10 per. I think it's less than $10 like per unit that you get.
It is $70 for that box set. There are 22 miniatures in it, and like Bad Batch is what, like $50, you know, but just as like a comparison point, right?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
paying there. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
getting like
it's really good.
half an army for $70, as opposed to I would also I was go as far as to say, like, if you want to ever play Shadow Collective this holiday season, you should probably pick this up before they like decide to like redo this box.
Yeah, and you can even get, I mean, you said 3, Evan. You can actually get up to 4 of them and still be like within your force org.
yeah.
With, you know,
Yeah.
and have a legal army with 4 boxes, which I think is probably not something that, I mean, you'll have like 4 different poses of Maul, obviously. uh,
Yeah.
but maybe you could do some dioramas or something with him. But there's very little like extra stuff that you paid for that you are not going to potentially use if you buy like 3 to 4 of those Shadow Collective boxes. I got 3 when I started Shadow Collective, and that was
Yeah,
basically
me
what I
too.
needed. So
And I think it's worth mentioning that like all of those models are really solid.
they are very
Yes,
good.
they're
In the
all
Shadow
excellent.
Collective.
Yes.
Is that the Super Commandos look incredible. Maul in both of his iterations looks really good.
Yep.
And like the Black Sun and Pikes are great because they're sort of like the different varieties of mobsters sort of translated into the Star Wars world, but even down to the fact that the leaders are called Vigos and Capos, is, they know exactly what they were doing when they did that, but it feels appropriately gangster, and it's very thematic. The models look great, and so if you're into that sort of thing, and I certainly hope that AMG in the future is going to have more sort of underworld related stuff for Legion. Because right now it's basically this and then the various bounty hunters that have come out in the swoops. But you get a lot in this one box. So if you're into that sort of thing, it really is a great value.
Yeah. All right. Well, what should you get next? If you let's assume that you've got your Battle Force box and your Essentials kit or whatever. Where do you go from there?
Yeah. So for each of the factions, is that it's basically a list of the quote unquote essentials, the high value buys, is where um, I think that they're where you get the most bang for your buck, and it's not meant to be like you should get all of these before you spread out and get anything else. But I think these are the ones that are the easiest recommendation. And so just to go through a couple of different examples from each of the factions, is that for separatists, I think that as long as you're willing to sort of bite the bullet and have the soft plastic, is that he is going to be probably pretty cheap. Is that I would go ahead and grab Dooku. I would grab Super Tactical Droid. Probably a couple more, or like maybe to start out with like one more B1 set, and then the B1 upgrade set. And then I think that the other ones that I would point out is to at least get one of the Separatist Specialist pack so that you can get the T Series Generic Commander, which is still, or actually even more useful now than it had been in the past, and it's always been good.
Yep.
And then either one or two of each of the BX commandos, and then also the Magna Guards, is that either one of those can be a lot of fun on the table. Like the commandos can be shooty, but they both have the capability of being sort of run at you, charging and stabbing as an aggressive melee unit. They both have really solid models, and they look and feel good on the table. And so as far as like the generic units go, I think that BX and Magnas are probably the best ones, and then you can't go wrong with Count Dooku or the super tactical droids. Maul is also pretty good value because you also get the probe droids, which I'm not sure how sort of great they are in 2.6, but they are neat little models that you can do some funky stuff with.
They're excellent for those.
Yeah.
For those counting. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the ones that I would sort of hit first for separatists, and then for
Sorry, I gotta.
yeah, go ahead.
Maybe you mentioned B2s, and I missed it.
I
know
didn't
that
mention
I
B2s
know they're
because
super hard to find.
Yeah,
But
they are super good.
If you can find them, they're like probably the first thing I would buy because they're great in 2.6. I mean, maybe you can go on eBay or find someone that's, in a buy sell trade or whatever. That's probably what
Yeah.
you got to do to get B2s. But the kits are, great, and the unit is really good. So
Yeah.
But yeah,
Totally agree with that.
you're gonna have a hard time finding like a MSRP copy from a store or a website or something currently, unfortunately.
You can certainly find them if you're willing to pay, extra money to get them, either from like secondhand, or there are some stores that have upcharged them because they know about the scarcity. But yeah, if you can find them, then like they are listed on the essentials part of the website. Only reason why I didn't mention sort of on the podcast for right now is just that they are disappointingly hard to find.
Yep. They're the unicorns of 2.6.
Yeah. Yeah. So grab them if you can find them for sure. On the other side of the Clone Wars is that I'll just mention really quickly something I didn't say before is that if you get that 501st box, then the thing that you won't get is Obi-Wan. Now AMG has said that Obi-Wan is going to be like one of the first hard plastic re-releases, and we're all sort of guessing that that's going to be a part of the new core set. But regardless of sort of what form he comes in, is that it's worth mentioning that if you really want to play him, then you can get the core set. But another thing you can do is that there are plenty of CIS players who got original core sets and that they have like spare baggies of Obi-Wan. Back in the day, the most economical way to start a faction was to get like 2 or 3 core sets, especially for the Clone Wars, like when the game first started, because you would get then all the core that you need. And so you can actually often find loose Obi-Wan baggies on eBay for not very much. And since his card changed anyway, and is like, there for print and play, is that if you have the model, then you're going to have everything you would need. You can print the command cards for now, and nobody's going to care. But other than that, is that if you did get the core set, is definitely pick up Anakin. If you got 501st, you'll already have him. And then Bad Batch is still viable now. For now, I'm not sure how long that's going to be the case because they're going to be popular for 2 different factions. I would pick that up as well. And then if you want to, you can get a couple more Phase 2 clone troopers. I think that because you get either 3 or 4 in the 501st box, is that not a ton of lists are actually even running more than 3 as of right now. So that's sort of a like buy it if you want to sort of deal. And then the things that I will definitely point out is that just like with the B2s, if you can find Republic Commandos, then I would nab them. Maybe get a couple of them if you can. Same thing if you can find a saber tank, is that I think that unit is actually like, it's a great model, and it's pretty good in 2.6. It's not like bowling people over, so to speak, but it's definitely a great model, and it's pretty fun to have on the table. And then probably a couple boxes of the Republic Specialists, because that will give you commander minis, which are still quite useful in ARC troopers, especially. And you can also use them as generic commanders that are still pretty decent, as well as maybe a medic or 2. And then the weirdly enough is that the Phase 1 clone trooper upgrade expansion is the only way to get the captain miniature, which just became a little bit more attractive with the recent points change as far as being an ARC trooper unit. And so if you wanted to pick that up, then that would be the place that you can go. I will say that I think that they're probably going to have a Captain Mini in the re-release of Clone Infantry. So you may want to just wait for that as well. Do you guys have any other thoughts on Republic Essentials?
I mean, I think you can probably do some kind of proxy or kit bash for things like the Captain Mini in the meantime, if, besides just going out and buying a whole box for that.
All the clones look the same.
Yeah, I think that if you're in any tournament except for Worlds, is that you're gonna totally be able to get away with it, and maybe even Worlds also.
I was gonna say, as someone who's been to Worlds and have used various minis for commanders and captains, I think it's fun. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you're consistent and it's okay with your TO and whoever, like, which it usually is, because
Yeah.
again, they all look pretty similar.
Yeah, it's like even when they're on the table and you're using the correct models, it's sort
Yeah.
of tough to tell. It's as
Yeah, it's
long
like,
as
oh, the captain's the one with the binoculars.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where what's more important about that is making sure that your squads are like properly, like you can tell between the
You got it
squads,
squad marked.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the thing that
Squad
matters is
marked.
that both you and your opponent know what each mini actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do a whole episode about the importance of squad marking and
Yeah.
Yeah.
painting your squads differently, or having
Yeah,
something to tell the difference. But
I do think I don't think it's a huge deal right now, but I do think that with the changes to commandos and stuff, if you're not buying core sets, you're probably not getting like barks or like ATRTs also on here, and I think both of those are actually like they're pretty cheap, good support units. Like can't really go wrong. I bet you can find ATRT specifically, probably like on a discount rack in some stores.
on eBay
Those
or
are still in
something.
Asmodee's store, so you'll
Yeah.
be able to find those
Yeah.
wherever you
Yeah.
are.
They were not good before 2.6, and I actually think
Yeah.
they're pretty good now. And like
Yeah.
they're at least defensible now.
Yeah.
So I definitely would you can probably get those on the cheap.
And then moving on to the Civil War factions.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Can
go
I
ahead.
interrupt you?
Yeah.
Did you talk about any Wookiees?
I was gonna hit those. I was gonna hit the Battle Force stuff, specifically Wookiees and Ewoks, after we go over the main factions.
Okay, that's fair.
Because I think that's, even though I didn't organize like the site that way, I think that when we're talking things over, it's good to cover the big four first and then talk about the Battle Forces a little bit.
Okay. I just didn't want you to forget the furries.
No, absolutely. I have a prop for that as well.
Yep.
Don't worry about that.
All right.
So yeah, Galactic Empire. I'd say that the two easy ones are this one actually. This is like a reminder that I'm going to need to re-update the site after this to, I think, replace Boba Fett with Krennic. Because I would actually say that Krennic and Operative Vader are probably the first two character packs that I would pick up for Empire. The latter is actually more important for the command cards that you get than necessarily the miniature, although the miniature can be nice to have in certain circumstances. But Director Krennic got one of the biggest glow ups in the Legion update in general, and he's kind of considered a staple for the faction at this point because of what he brings to the table. Veers is also very solid. I think that's worth mentioning. And then from there, it's sort of about like what flavor of Empire do you want to have. I think that it's good to pick up at least one unit of Shores so that you can like experiment with that, and then you do also get the mortar as a part of that, so you get 2 units with 1 pack, and you can decide about whether you'd want to have more. It's worth it to get at least 1 personnel expansion because that'll give you the generic commander who newly has exemplar, as well as a medic droid that in some Imperial lists is still going to be pretty popular. A couple stormtroopers, especially if you got Blizzard Force, is that it's good to have at least, I think, 2 of those so that you can be a little bit more flexible in your lists. And also I would
take the HRUs.
Yeah, that's right. And yes, for Blizzard Force is that there's a unit that the Battle Force enables, but that doesn't come with the box. But that if you're going to start playing competitively, you like really want to have access to at least 2 of those units. And so for that is that I listed on here is that I would recommend for pretty much everybody to grab 2 Stormtrooper boxes and then 2 of the Stormtrooper upgrade boxes, which give you the heavy weapons to really round out that HRU. And then from there is that a couple of Scout Troopers will sort of put you on the way to being able to run Tempest Force a little bit down the road, because that's going to be like there's no box for that, but that you need access to at least a few boxes worth of Scout Troopers to even be able to run Tempest Force at all. And then there's various other ones. Like I think range troopers are okay. I think another one that I'm going to add on to this essentials list is is to at least consider doing one unit of Death Troopers, because if we're going to be recommending that you're getting Krennic, is that you like he has this ability to where he can enable Death Troopers to get a free order token every round, which is very good, and he also can expand the Special Forces slot with that same ability. So and they're a very effective shooting unit. Like they have a pretty good alpha strike, and they're tough to sort of like fully defeat, except with lightsabers. And so um, yeah, those are the big ones that I would think about with Empire. If you got Blizzard Force, you'll have already gotten an ATST. But if you got the core set, I would pick up probably that newer version of the ATST. The other Empire vehicles I can't recommend quite as highly right now, but uh, I will say that the LAT and maybe to a slightly lesser extent the Gav like do look really good on the table. If sort of like looking good on the table is the main thing that you care about.
Yeah, they're definitely stunning pieces for sure. If lackluster in the game.
Yeah.
I think one other thing to mention here, if you are going to get the Scout Troopers, the Scout Troopers are one of the first things on the getting redone chopping block.
Yeah.
We've already seen the sculpts, and I suspect they'll be probably pretty quick to come after the initial like core troopers get released. So maybe don't go whole ham on them unless you really, really want to play Tempest like right now.
Yeah, and even though I'm not sure if we know for sure, but I imagine that you're going to get enough minis to run like a generic unit and a strike team with one box. Whereas before, I think you had to kind of like pick between the heavies for each one in order to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because you only got 4 generic minis and then you got the 2 heavies, which means that
you think they're going to put 2 snipers in each box?
Well, no, I don't think that they're going to do that, but I think that I hope that they're going to at least have 5 generic scout minis so that you won't have to sort of worry about like the mix and matching sort of deal. Because I think before you would have to sort of pretend that a Saboteur was like a regular scout mini in order to be able to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Worth noting that the Arc box, which you can do that in.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. It's actually worth highlighting specifically the Arc box, the Magna Guard box, and the BX Commando box as all boxes that technically actually have 2 units in them.
The Wookiee box also.
The Wookiee box, yeah. The Arc box has like 7 models, I think. You can basically field a full Arc unit plus a strike team with that box. The same as
have the
BX
requisites
box.
And have the requisite snipers, because you know, if you just take your Echo and paint him a little differently, and he's regular cloning.
Yeah, you just don't give him the handprint or whatever. Yeah. Again, clones, they're clones.
Clones are clones.
Clones are clones. Yeah, the BX the same, and then the Magna Guard actually also comes with like 7 models, even though the base unit is only 3 to 4. So you can't quite make like 2 full units of Magna Guard with that box, but like if you get 2 boxes, you can definitely make 3 Magna Guard units.
Yeah.
So it's worth highlighting as some of those boxes have like even extra value, even though they're notionally like single unit purchase boxes. They actually have a little more than that in them. So
to round out the big factions, is that for Rebels, is that again you get quite a bit in terms of the heroes from the Echo based box, is that you get all the big ones except for Han. And so I would say that Han, from a gameplay perspective, would be a good pickup. I think it's worth mentioning that I think it's almost universal that everybody thinks that the original Han model is maybe the lowest quality model in the game, period. The face for it looks funky.
there were some real funny memes about the face when that first came out.
It travels the world of faces, but never once visits Harrison Ford's face. So you can sort of take that as you will. Is that we've seen the updated sculpt and it is way closer. The updated, like all of the updated sculpts are going to be better just because they're higher quality stuff. But from a gameplay perspective, Han is often showing up in the rebel list, both for the main faction, and he's also eligible for Bright Chief Village, which we'll talk about in a second. So he's probably the best unique unit pickup. And then I think the other ones that I would mention is Cassian K2. I know that y'all aren't too hot on Cassian at the moment. I think that he's still at least average from a gameplay perspective, but you get two good models out of that, and you get 2 units out of it too. And so I think that there's definitely going to be potential for it. I also think for Rebels is that weirdly, even though I don't think that for Empire any of the bounty hunters are like sort of on that must buy list, is that for Rebels I think there's 2 of them, which is which you should think about, which is the IG set and also Mandalorian.
Oh wow, neither of those. I was gonna agree, and then you did not say the one that I was gonna suggest.
Yeah, so I mean, were you gonna say Rebel Boba?
I was gonna say
Yeah,
Rebel Boba.
I don't think he's that bad either. I think that like Mandalorian got a points cut, and also his Grogu buddy got significantly better with the rules change to where he's not like a liability anymore.
Yeah.
And IG-11 specifically because of the cover change, suddenly it became a like consistently piercing 2 different units on all of his shots because he has gunslinger.
The AI change was extremely big for him.
The AI change was also very helpful for him for sure. So I think those are worth looking at from a character perspective, and then from a non-unique perspective is that if you got the Echo-based Defenders box, is that I think it's worth getting at least 1 unit of Rebel Troopers with an upgrade pack along with it, so that you can sort of experience what the options are like, and that when the better sculpts come out, is that you'll sort of like know how much you like them, and then you can also think about Fleet Troopers to round it out. That's sort of like, I think that using Fleet Troopers is for somebody who's like a little bit down the road in terms of your experience level with the game, but they definitely also got a glow up more recently. I think 1 personnel expansion is good to get the generic commander, who will still continually show up in a lot of Rebel lists just because he's a good deal. And then I think that for rounding things out is that this is like another section that I'm going to be updating after this, because I realized that I didn't move it. Sorry, I did put it in here. Is that the sleeper cell, which just came out, is I would consider getting at least 2. And then I think that maybe
get 3.
You could get 3, but I do think that there's something to your third special forces being Bistan Pathfinder.
I would caution you on buying 3. I think you should buy 1, see how you like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we've talked up Sleeper Cell a lot.
That's fair.
I think they're less good than
the ain't ARC Troopers. Like
No.
I think that was hopefully clear to everybody when they came out, but they do a couple of things that are sort of that flavor, is that they are like an aggro rebel unit that is effective, and they basically didn't have one of those, like an effective generic aggressive unit. Like I don't think that was a thing that Rebels even had before Sleeper Cell came out, and so I think that it does round out lists pretty well.
Yeah, I do think like you need to be. It's a unit that if it doesn't mesh with your play style, you are not gonna like it.
That's fair. So yeah, maybe you start out with 1. Sorry, what were we gonna say, Kyle?
No, that's fair.
Yeah. But I do think that like the full commandos are solid if you wanted a more shootery unit, and then like I think that recommending 1 Pathfinders feels solid, just because the Bistan Pathfinders is a pretty like points effective unit to have as an option. You know, now that it's like Ion, that you don't have to recover every round to get it. And even though there's fewer Republic commandos out there, there's still plenty of droids and vehicles and fun stuff like that can take Ion tokens. So yeah, any other thoughts about rebels before we move on to the battle forces, which will be quicker per one of those.
I think the Operative Luke expansion. I mean, he's obviously getting redone, but I definitely think he's, as far as like bang for your buck
That's true.
and really good units go, you kind of can't go wrong with Operative Luke. I might put on that list, but other than that, I think that yeah.
Should clarify, the sculpt is getting redone. The unit they've said is definitely not getting redone.
Correct.
So,
Yes. Yeah. We're like pretty confident. We know what he's gonna continue to be able to do. Still
yep.
very good.
Yes.
Wears force push well. And is still
Looks good on him.
He's
Yeah.
a one-man army, you know. If
Yeah.
you're yeah.
Yeah, I agree that he's a good pickup. And then, funny enough, is that Operative Luke is the one sort of person who is hanging out on Endor in Return of the Jedi who is not allowed to be in the Bright Tree Village battle force, which is there's two battle forces that are sort of semi extensions off of the big four factions. So one of them is Bright Tree Village, which is Ewoks, so they're an extension of Rebels. So uh, with that one is that it's pretty straightforward. Is that you got your low gray and wicket box, and then if you're going to be in on this, is that you would want to get the ATST, which comes with a Chewbacca card and a Chewbacca mini that you can put on top of the ATST. As only get one of those because you can only run one of them. It's like the one that he captured in the movie. And then for all of the rest of it is that you're just going to buy a crap load of Ewok Warriors boxes, which I actually don't know the math in terms of like at what point can you like squeeze an extra unit out of getting X number of these boxes. I think that it's kind of tough to do that because
It is.
Yeah, I
each
don't
box
think you
comes with
really
8 minis. Is
got
that right?
yeah.
It's 8, and the sculpts are
The same.
there's yeah, and they're sort of difficult to like customize and pose. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think like if you want to run kind of the full Bright Tree Village experience and take 6 Ewok warrior units and 3 slingers, you probably just need to buy 9 boxes of Ewoks.
I actually think that it's a lot more than that. I think in under the new points
Right now, the
values,
slingers are so economical as a doubled
Because
up
to
unit.
double them up, yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually think you're buying 18.
18. that
To
sounds like too many.
to
At
be
least.
completely frank with you, I think if you're not super squad in your Ewoks, I think the correct way to run this battle force is to super squad the Ewoks. Obviously, the ATSC is cool. If that's what you want to run, go for
Yeah.
it.
For what it's worth, the big tournament winners have super squatted the slingers consistently.
Okay.
And that they sometimes they have the ATSD, sometimes not. And so when they don't have it, is that obviously means that they're super squatting more of the Warriors core unit. But the slingers is the best super squad value in the game by like a decent margin, and the Warriors aren't super far behind them. But who knows if that's going to change by April also. So sort of like
Yeah.
that's a risk that you may have to take. But if you get, it sounds crazy to say, but like if you get 6 as an entry point, is that then you can round out the rest with like a bunch of heroes and at least experience like what the squad does. Is that then you can put Han and Leia and Wicket and Logray in there, and then like have Chewie and maybe put some extra upgrades on the Ewoks, and maybe you'll like toss a couple commando units in there or something. Is that you can get by with 6 of them, and I realize that it sounds crazy to talk about like buying 6 boxes of something as an entry point, but it truly would be the true like minimal entry point for this.
Yeah, I definitely think as far as like holiday buying guides go, if you or someone else wants to get in this game, I would really recommend not starting here. Unless
Unless they're Ewok crazy.
Yes, unless like this is the reason you're playing Legion is
Yeah,
to
exactly.
play Ewoks, I would recommend starting elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If you think you might want to like eventually play Ewoks, then maybe just start with kind of Rebels generically and buy a few Ewok boxes that you can use like in your Rebel army just to see if you like them, if you like the models.
That's a good point. Yeah. Right
Okay.
now they're both of those units are quite useful in rebel armies. And
Yes.
so that way you get a miniature version of the Ewok experience. Like for the real deal is that you get some command cards that maybe take better advantage of them, and then you actually ironically run into more courage problems than you have with the like with using them in the rebel unit. But yeah, like I think like starting off with a couple and running them in a rebel army is probably the right way to go, and then you can decide if you want to really dive into it. Along a similar token to that is that for the other good guy faction, there is the Kashyyyk Defender Battle Force, and so for that, just as like buying a bunch of Ewok boxes is the way to get into Ewoks, is that for this one, as your starting point, is that you're going to want to have probably at least 4 Wookiee Warriors boxes. If you get those, just be sure that you get the one that has both the Republic and Rebel symbol on the front. And please do not get the one that just has the Rebel symbol on the front, because you're going to be shortchanging yourself in terms of the models you get and also the cards that you get. Is that this was like the original re-release to where they made the value of the box like way more when they came out with that one. So that's just a word of caution. And then I would also get somebody from a totally different faction, which is Chewbacca, but he can be played in this battle force. And then I would get at least 2 of the vehicle of note from this battle force. And so this is the Ragnass Fluttercraft, my favorite unit in the game, and I know that that's an opinion that I share with at least like 3 other people that play Legion. But the thing that I'll just mention quickly with this one,
dozens.
there are dozens. I'll mention real quickly that a lot of people live in fear of this unit because of the fragility of it, and believe me, it is fragile as hell. But I get into this in the Fluttercraft article that I have, is that the way to get around that is to magnetize them. So hopefully you can see this well enough, is that you have the base with the stand, there's a magnet on top of that. And then you got the actual Fluttercraft clips on, so that way if it falls, like if this crashes to the ground, which believe me happens, is that it will sort of collapse instead of break. And then same deal with the rotors, is that can just like clip onto the top, and then you can rotate it. You can rotate the rotors if you want to, just to sort of like make room for yourself. And you have like a functional piece that isn't sort of a ticking time bomb in terms of you having spent a lot of time and money and energy into a miniature that is liable to collapse. And it also makes transporting them way easier. It kind of sucks that like this is a unit to where you have to sort of front load it with modeling tips that don't come in the box, and that you like really, in my opinion, need to be using those little tiny magnets to get the work done. But once you do all that, is that you have a unit that is not totally mega fragile, and I promise it's just like a lot of fun to actually play in the battlefield, and it got even better with Legion 2.6. So in this battle force, it's extra good because it can be speed 3, and that makes it, in my opinion, the best speeder in the game at that point.
I think you could argue it's the only good speeder in the game.
That's been my argument for a while. I know that not everybody shares that opinion, Mike. Yeah, and then just like finish things off, is that with Shadow Collective, we mentioned before that you get almost all of what you need in that Shadow Collective box, but really the couple of things that I'll mention is that Gar Saxon is like he goes right along with those Sewer Commandos that you're going to be getting in those boxes anyway. And so he's like a great alternative commander to Maul. And then from there, I think that you can sort of make equal arguments about, you could pick up Bosk, you could pick up a couple of swoop bikes to try those out, or you could pick up, maybe start with one bus to use as a as a Black Sun delivery platform to kind of get the feel for that. There aren't a ton of options for Shadow Collective, and there's also nothing announced on the horizon. There's notably like one character who would be an obvious choice for it, which is Savage Opress, Small's brother. He's not announced or anything, but he seems like he would be an obvious pick to sort of give some more options to the sort of like the de facto scum faction of the game. But yeah, those are the extra things I would consider for Shadow Collective players, and that rounds it out.
Yeah,
not Cad Bane for Shadow Collective players.
I wouldn't recommend him right now. Boy, Cad Bane feels tough. In
he's one of the
2.6.
most awkward 2.6 units, I think.
Yeah.
I hope they redo him at some point in a significant way.
I actually think I don't know. I guess we'll see. But
he was made for a game where you could pick up objectives and move around with them.
Yeah.
I mean, many characters in this game were.
Sure, I just feel like him more so than many others.
Sure. I think that's one of the reasons a lot of the bounty hunters are in rougher shape at the moment.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think some of the other ones like Boba are just better at raw killing things than Cad Bane is. You know, even if their primary role before was objectives. But yeah. What about vital assets, Evan? Should people go buy that, even though it's still on sale?
I think that probably the last thing that we'll just mention on here is that there are some generic things that you can buy for Legion, but weirdly enough is that there's more to sort of recommend against than to recommend for at the moment. So the first thing is that priority supplies, which is harder to find, and vital assets, which is easier to find, but you shouldn't, is that those were mostly bought for the fact that they gave you battle cards that don't exist in the game anymore. Which is especially funny for vital assets because of the name of it, and also because Asmodee is still selling it on his website, which I don't think that it should, because any person who buys it is gonna probably find out too late that they wasted a significant part of their money. You do get some decent like scatter terrain for the game if you want to use it that way, but it ain't worth the $30 that you get for vital assets just to get like those bomb cards that you could sort of convert into either POIs or scatting terrain. And priority supplies, you get some boxes and moisture evaporators that are also sort of like halfway decent scatter terrain, but certainly not anything that would be worth that much. So I would avoid those. And then I'd actually also avoid the generic card packs, because all these cards are going to get replaced anyway. And when you're playing the game now, is that the only cards that you really physically need are ones that are double-sided, just because there's not a way to there's not an easy way to represent that on like a printed image, a PDF of the list. So when I go to tournaments, is that usually the only physical cards that I'm actually bringing these days are the commando weapons, like the sniper and versus anti-armor ones, and everything else is that I just like print off a PDF from Tabletop Admiral, and like I use that for my cards because a lot of them are new versions. A lot of the unit cards are new versions, and in this print and play sort of interim that we're in right now, is that given, especially for the upgrade cards, given the fact that all of them are going to change, is that I would not, even though they're only like $5 or $10, is that I really wouldn't worry about getting those.
No, they're all wrong. You don't need them. Don't buy that. Yeah.
Really, I think as far as generic stuff goes, is that it's pretty much all about you can get another essentials pack to have some spare movement templates and like the sturdier version of the range ruler, so that you can more easily sort of mix and match those. And sometimes like something will get damaged or lost or whatever, and it's good to have spares. And then importantly, you also get 3 more dice with that. I should say you get 3 more of each type of dice with that. And you're going to want to have more dice than you get with either the core set or the essentials pack. So basically it's up to you about like, do you want to get another essentials kit, or do you want to round it out by getting the either the attack dice or the defense dice? I think that the defense dice is probably maybe a little bit more essential, just because like you're going to have big rally rolls and big defense rolls when your opponent is scoring a bunch of hits on you. But you're definitely going to want like a few more dice of each type, and so those are like the two ways to get it. So as far as like the generic stuff goes, is that's really the only thing that we would recommend thinking about right now.
Yeah, definitely. If you just got core set dice, you're gonna need a dice pack for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
particularly in the new world of large dice pool Legion.
What about like, I mean, obviously, AMG doesn't sell these, but for POIs and measuring tools and stuff.
Yeah. So my solution is to get some stuff from Amazon. It's like a 12 pack of these exactly 2-inch washers, and so it doesn't look fancy, but it is functional and sort of like industrially validated as being exactly 2 inches, which is more than a lot of 3D printed stuff is gonna get for you. And then I got this very fancy mounting bracket which is exactly 3 inches to use as my half range ruler. And then, if you're going to be going to the hardware store anyway, you might as well get some tiny circular magnets, because especially once you get deeper into the game, is that magnetizing your army is often a good idea. So like those are also really cheap. Just be sure that they're this is another thing that I need to put on the guide, but you just want to be sure that you get ones that are shallow enough that they fit completely under the base and that they don't like stick out from the bottom, because that will frustrate you, is if you put all those on there and you realize that they're sort of too deep and that they're sticking out from under it and then making it tilt when you put it down. You don't want to do that, but it's pretty easy to find ones that are the right depth, and then you can magnetize your whole army.
Worth noting is you can get a half range ruler through AMG if you'd like to put down like $140. You can just buy the Shatterpoint core set.
Worth noting that the range 2 template from either Shatterpoint or Marvel Crisis Protocol is also exactly 3 inches, and so that was actually the first thing that I used. It just felt like, weirdly, it felt more janky than having a mounting bracket be my half range ruler.
Okay.
But yeah, you can definitely do that as well if you play either one of those games. Is that you can just port it over.
There's also lots of like not even just 3D printed, but just kind of third party tools you can get that have that kind of. I mean, 3 and 6 inches are both super common distances in miniatures games, so you can buy. I mean, they're kind of like trapezoid kind of shaped, but you can buy tools that have like 3 inches on one side of them.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's like 3 inches on one side, it's like 6 inches on the other, and then like 2 inches, and then there's you can get a lot of tools, to cover that 3-inch increment. There's a lot of different ways to do it. So yeah. I like your mounting bracket idea, though. That's probably the cheapest and also most accurate way to actually get like a half range ruler. So
yeah.
And then you can paint it if you don't feel like throwing a mounting bracket.
Yeah, you could. I mean, you could just paint it. If you primed it, you could paint it however you wanted, and then you could make it look Star Warsy. But these are all things that we're gonna have plastic for whenever new core sets come out. But given that is a while from now, is that spending $10 on a pack of washers that gives you 12 of them, so that you can you can split it with a friend, or you can like give them away to friends or whatever. Is that it's certainly not a bad value, and I like that more than the idea of 3D printing it personally. But to each their own. Like you can look around Etsy or any number of other places and probably find what you need. Yeah, I mean, so that's the meat of the buyer's guide, and then below all that is that there's obviously like plenty of units that we didn't talk about. Is that we are complete with the buyer's guide, and so the bottom section is sort of to round out all the factions or all of the units available in the game, to talk about what is at least sort of my feelings on the relative value of all of them. So that way you can take a peek at that. It's worth mentioning that a lot of players are just going to have their preference. Is that a lot of players are going to want to run Wookiees for the fun of it, or that they want to run Ahsoka because Ahsoka is one of their favorite characters. Rebels only for now, but Gar will get theirs soon-ish. That'll be sometime like early to mid next year. And yeah, like the most important thing is that you want to have an army that you're going to be motivated to both paint and put on the table. And so like there's no like dumb choice. But given that a lot of players are going to care about both the quality of the model and the playability of it, that's the idea of this guide, is to sort of help point people in the right direction.
I would encourage people to talking about painting motivation.
Mhm.
The one thing that always motivates me to paint is signing up for a tournament.
Yeah,
So even if
me
it's just
too.
like a local tournament, um, the local 3-round Saturday tournament or whatever, I'd encourage you, if you're just getting into the game, to, a month or two out, sign up for something just to kind
Yeah,
of give you like a hard deadline to get all your stuff painted up and ready for the table. I know, at least for me personally, if I'm just playing like local pickup games, it's harder to get myself motivated to get everything like to a really good standard. Um, whereas a tournament gives you like an actual hard, unavoidable deadline that you have to meet to get all your stuff looking pretty good. So
yeah, totally
I,
agree
I
with
know
that.
that's not like a thing to buy, but after you've bought all the things, then go sign up for a tournament, uh, because it will motivate you to get all the things assembled and painted. At least
Yeah,
it does for me. So,
It's definitely one of the best ways to motivate yourself for sure.
and it's a good way to meet people. So,
yeah.
all right. Any final thoughts?
No, I'm excited. I'm excited for Adepticon and sort of finding out like what the landscape is going to be like when it comes to these units. And you know, as soon as we get the info for Aqua Droids, which are going to be coming out like in just over a month, is that it'll be interesting to find out whether or not they're going to be sort of earning top slots in this guide. I bet that they will. Just if they're going to be massive line of sight walls, but we're going to see about that, I guess.
Depends on how much that line of sight wall costs you.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
Yeah, and what else it's good at.
Right,
yes,
right.
yeah. If they're like Dark Trooper prices for a Dark Trooper-esque profile, I don't know. We'll see. But
Yeah, I think they'll be a little better than Dark Troopers.
I suspect so as well.
I
But
think that the big base will be a big part of that.
yes, I think there's that, and also like if Dark Troopers block line of sight right now, they
Yeah,
actually might be okay.
for sure.
Putting your entire army behind Armor 3 is relevant.
Being able to
Yeah,
block Dooku with one unit of Aqua Droids on the way in seems kind of nasty.
You're gonna be able to block Dooku, Maul, the
Magna
three
Guards.
V2s
Yeah,
behind him, the two Magnas. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
a lot of possibilities.
yeah.
Totally.
All right. Well, I hope that everybody, puts their Christmas list together, puts some Legion stuff on it.
Hmm.
We are the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle.
I'm Mike.
I'm Evan.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.